what stands out the most to you with West Virginia's infrastructure with this report?
I think the thing that really stands out is people drive across a bad road and they obviously know that it's a bad road. But I think what people miss is just how much this actually costs them every single year. And when we looked at it, we found that poor roads and bridges in West Virginia are costing people around $723 every single year. And that really adds up very quickly because when we looked at overall, we found that West Virginia had the third worst roads in the United States. And that really costs drivers as much as $723 every single year when you look at the extra cost that drivers have to pay to repair their vehicle and the time that they lose because of inefficiencies.
Right. So what are some reasons why states would have terrible roads?
So that is a complicated answer, but the easiest thing to say is one of the big reasons we find why states don't have good roads is because they don't put the funding into them, whether they don't have the funding in the first place or because they're not reinvesting in repairs. When we look at West Virginia, we found that about 19% of the funds that are earmarked for transportation, only 19% of that goes back into road repair. That's one of the lowest rates in the country. And when you look at that, we found that states that have a low rate of investing their funds in repairs have a higher cost to motorists. So it really does all kind of add up at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. One thought that I had, and I don't know if you are super familiar with this or not, and it's okay if you're not, but I was wondering if maybe it had something to do with how hilly West Virginia is.
So yes, but no, right? So when you look at it, the different geographical conditions within a state, the weather patterns, they're going to make it more difficult to keep those roads up to date. In Arizona, where you pretty much have consistent temperatures, you're not seeing a lot of rain, you're not seeing a lot of snow, it's easier to maintain those roads. You look at more mountainous states and it's harder to maintain the roads. So certain states do have a more difficult time keeping their roads in adequate working condition. But ultimately, that really is something that the state there's nothing you can do about that, right? Like that has to be factored into the equation from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk about the infrastructure bill. How do you think that will really affect West Virginia?
It's difficult to put a number on it, right? Because when we look at it initially, we found that about $6 billion is earmarked for West Virginia. And that can go a long way because once you start repairing things, then that really can fix a lot of the problems. The other thing is job creation. We found that for every $1 billion invested into infrastructure, about 13,000 jobs are created. So in West Virginia, you could be looking at as many as 78,000 jobs created from this infrastructure bill.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge investment. And when we looked at the numbers, this is the largest investment in infrastructure in the last decade. And from a job creation standpoint, it is huge. 78,000 jobs for West Virginia. And obviously, this is going to go a long way too towards repairing a lot of those roads. One of the things that we have also found, though, is when you're looking at traffic conditions, traffic is generally not fixed by adding capacity. You put another lane on the highway, it's going to fill up during rush hour, just like the other lanes. If you're trying to address traffic congestion in big cities, the only way to do that is when you look at public transportation, because instead of adding an extra lane, you're taking cars off of the road. And that's really where you can fix traffic congestion. So investing in public transportation, even though it's a difficult thing in some places and it's hard to get people to buy in, is the way to fix that. You look at a city like Seattle, which is one of the few cities, maybe the only city, that has been able to reduce their traffic congestion as their population has grown. And they've done that by investing in infrastructure and specifically public transportation.